Let's go ahead and get our pump hooked up. So I usually like to use 3/4 inlet for the pump for the plumbing, but in this case we have a 1/2 inch PVC connection, so we're just going to go ahead and run with that for demonstration. And we're just going to go ahead and take our plumbing and we're just going to connect it right into our pump, just like that, and then we'll just sink our pump right down on into the water and then just lag this part over into our system, just like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get our pump plugged in and get some live action happening. Here we go. So something we need to keep in mind is when the water is flowing into the rock box, we need to always make sure it's on the opposite side of the bell siphon. So wherever the water is inletting, we need it to overflow on the opposite side so that all of that water and all of that debris that's in the water can filter through the rocks before it hits the overflow. So now the water flooding in has filled up to the overflow and it's overflowing right here. So now it's starting to rush into our system below the fish tank. There's our pump. There's our overflow. And remembering and imagining that this is all full of rocks and we've got plants planted all throughout this part of the system. So now that we're overflowing, we can go ahead and grab our bell siphon and we can just place this right on top of the overflow. And you'll notice in a second, this water will start to rush much quicker. See that? So it begins to really fire. And also you can see that the upper box is beginning to drain down fully. So here in a second, like I described earlier, the holes at the bottom of this bell siphon are gonna grab air and they're gonna turn off the flow. So give it just a second here. So you can hear it starting to grab air, starting to slow down a little bit. Because it's gotten down to where the air is catching. And it's draining that whole bottom part of the tub. And it should click after this next one. Boom. It clicked and now it's reflooding again. So now it's going to refill and then ebb and flow again, flood and drain. So this is what it looks like to run aquaponics. So in regards to our bell siphon and the flood and drain process, sometimes it can be tricky. Sometimes you'll place your bell siphon on top of your overflow and the water will go down completely, but then there'll be times where when it gets all the way to the bottom and it goes down completely, it'll just keep staying at the very bottom and it won't suck air and actually click off itself. So I'm going to give you two different ideas to help that and to kind of combat against it. So the first way to combat that is to have at least 10 to 12 inches on your drain pipe to allow for the bell siphon to click off. So we'll go ahead and put this in. So I've got that put in, and that's what most people will tell you to do, but I actually don't use that. I found it a lot easier just to use a 45 degree. So instead of using it what they standardly teach to use, I actually just used a 45, so I'll place this in instead, and then I can put another just small tube with another 45 just to kind of make the water level out and look nice and not splash too much. And this actually works really well, so go ahead and place this. So the second major reason why we could have our bell siphon not stop or start very well is due to the flow that's coming in from the pump, from the fish tank up into the rock box. Our flow might be too strong on the inlet. So what we can do is we can add in a stop and off and on switch, and we can just go ahead and place that in right here. And then we can regulate we can go ahead and regulate how much water is coming in, and that's going to help out drastically. And you also could add this down here and make a T and have some water spray in for the fish, and be able to open or close that more to allow for flow to slow down coming up here. So something to keep in mind is always keep your pump raised up off of the ground of the tank, just in case of any water loss. You don't want your fish to die, so you can go ahead and just elevate it, 5 inches off the ground of the tub, and that'll ensure that if all the water does escape from the pond somehow, that your fish aren't dead and they have enough water to survive. You can do this by just go ahead and cut your pipe that comes up and over to the length to keep it suspended in the air and to keep it off of the ground of the pond. So next I wanted to talk about a filter for the inlet of the water coming in from the fish tank up. There'll be a lot of debris in there, so you could use even just like a flower pot filled with rocks, and you could even put some sort of cloth over it, and you can just place this right into here, just like that, and then use that to make a little filter to catch beginning debris, something that you could take out and remove and get cleaned up. Or you could even use a cloth bag like this. You could just place that into there like that and allow for the water to flow through all the rocks, and you can just remove this bag simply and go ahead and get it cleaned. And while remembering that this whole box is filled with rocks, you'll have to create a space in the rocks for this so that you can do that. So I just wanted to say appreciate everyone's interest in aquaponics, and follow up on my next videos where I'm going to be talking about secrets, system maintenance, fish health, and a bunch of different types of aspects of growing with aquaponics. Appreciate you.